morning, everybody, and welcome to our FROEBELinsights on immersive language learning at Froebel Australia. Today, we're joined by representatives from each of our services at St Leonard's, at Carlton, at Parkville, at Fitzroy North, and at Alexandria. I think I have everyone now. To speak to you a little bit about how they put immersive language learning into practice at their services.
As a German speaker, I usually use the language as much as possible. When I come in the morning, I greet them in German and ask the kids if we have morning tea, for example, ask them to get their water bottle in German. I ask them to sit down in German. So I kind of integrate the language as much as possible, even with the kids who are not native speakers, who are not German native speakers. I use the language just to get them used to the sound and certain words which we use actually in our daily tasks, I would say. Yeah. So we use it every time, every day and all the time. But if we see that a child doesn't understand the language, we actually switch to English just to help them to understand, but then also repeat the German phrase to kind of have it equal.
So when they approach me with an English book, for example, I say out, I can read it, but I struggle, it's difficult. I prefer to read a German book, and that works very well. And yeah, it's mostly books and songs, all the transitions when we wash our hands, when we start to eat dinner or lunch, not dinner, or morning tea, that we sing our Fingerchen song, and that works very well. But there are certain situations when I have a child who has no German background, I have to switch into English, just drop off or someone got hurt. Yeah.
It's when children start and those separation anxiety and moments when children need somebody close to them and speaking their home language. So we actually use English and we switch to German a second phrase, but we use English to value the relationships too. So it depends on the situation.
Yes, or if a child is just coming over from Germany and their main language is German, obviously we use the German language more there in that moment because it gets the comfort. But for it's important that we build a relationship with the child to implement the language in any way, either German or English.
That is the same for us here in Alexandria. So language plays such an important part in establishing emotional security for the children. And depending on that aspect, we do have to decide basically in every moment which language we're going to use. In group times, when routines are well known to the children, when situations are really familiar to the children, that is when we really can indulge in immersive language learning. And another thing we do here is that we really model curiosity about culture and language. So with themes coming up in the classroom, we're asking the speakers of different languages, what does that mean in Mandarin? Let's have a look what that means in Gadigal language and in Daruk language, which is the language of the Gadigal people. What does that mean in French? If we have French speakers in the room, do you know what that means in Italian? So modeling this curiosity about different cultures and different languages and immersing ourselves in language learning.
I think that's a really important point, is that whilst the second language is our second predominant language, which is advertised, we actually have a community of children and educators and families that come from a vast number of spaces, and that curiosity to inquire about all languages it would foster and support the second immersive language. So if we're respectful and understanding that there is more than our two languages, there might be a better understanding as well from children to engage with that second language.
we are very lucky that we have lots of Spanish-speaking educators. And I think it's so important to be aware of when to use the language all the time, or when we need to switch to English, for example, depending on each child. And I think that's so important. So, you know, with things like those relationships and the routines, it's a bit easier when we have a physical connection to an object or to a routine or to a person. I think last time Emma, our center director, shared an article about how children learn to say spoon before sky, because a spoon is something they can touch and they have a connection, a physical connection with. And I think that makes so much sense when we talk about immersive language, because when we are asking a child in a language that the child doesn't understand, but we are showing, instead of saying, do you want apple? You can say, ¿quieres manzana in Spanish, but as you're showing the fruit, you don't need to translate in that moment. And I think that's something that happens a lot across all the rooms from nursery to kinder. So I think that's very valuable that educators have those skills to identify how to use it and when to use it. And it's something that happens kind of naturally. And those skills that are built, I think that's very important.
What really fascinates me is the impact that we have not only with the children, but with families and other people that join us. I was lucky enough to be in Fitzroy North when the German educators were speaking German. I have zero German, and I could learn some words that they were using it in everyday, in the basics, you know, in our routines, and Händewaschen and the Mit-Fingerchen, and, you know, like all those type of things is not only impacting children, but also other educators. And I was lucky enough to learn a little bit of German based on what I was seeing the educators were doing it with the children, and I was trying to copy and mimic. The same happened here in Spanish. I have a short story. We were teaching, as Laura was saying, in the daily basis, grab your agua, or toma agua, drink water. And the child went home on the weekend and he was like pointing, agua, agua, agua. And the parents on Monday, they came, what does it mean water? They have to Google it because they didn't know. And I said, yeah, it means water. So from them, like, they're like, oh, my child is learning something, and they couldn't cope because they were speaking other language rather than Spanish.
Yeah, I think that it's more than just us working with children. We work with communities. I'd like to pass over to our team at Parkville if we can hear a little bit about what's happening at Parkville with the second language.
We do a lot of German story time too, with like a lot of levels where we have this physical relationship with the words again, because we can point at the words they can see in the book. So children make a connection what the German word is, and
yeah. And that's been a really nice way of connecting the different rooms and fostering those like mixed age group relationships, as well as like having siblings being able to share story time. And
because we don't have necessarily a German-speaking educator or a Spanish-speaking educator in every single room, or someone might be on holidays, or someone might be sick, and we talked, Angelica said, you know, you learn alongside your colleagues. And Francie, you mentioned, you know, we do talk about this one teacher, one language, but when there's one teacher or and many children in a space, how does the learning and the continuation of the immersion in the second language appear within, say, the environments? Because I think there are many spaces that we probably have second languages in the spaces where children continue to be immersed. It's not necessarily someone always speaking.
if it's meal times, we have like a box with rhymes, so children can choose which one they like, and they already know them, and educators know them, even the English-speaking ones, so they will do it. If it's pack-away time, we use pack-away songs, and all educators can play them. Children can sing them, even if they can't play, they already do it. So it's always something there, and even children taking on this role, like I mean preschool at least, they're trying to use these words and tell everybody else like something in German, like what needs to be done, like aufräumen. They go everywhere and saying aufräumen, aufräumen.
For instance, like in the bathrooms where the children are starting to wash their hands, we wrote down the words both in German and English. So we actually got lots of parents coming back to us and saying, oh, today I learned a new word because I saw it in the bathroom when I was washing hands with my child. What does that mean? And then usually you start also interactions with the parents, and you start to build also the relationship in terms of the language with the parents as well. The same as I think with the colleagues as well who don't speak necessarily German.
It's more important to play German songs, you know, because as older children get, they're more understanding that, and their main language always will be in Australia the English, because they go to a supermarket, you will speak English. So what we try to approach with the parents, that they connect with German families, you know, if that is very important for them. So because it makes a difference if you have a play date and both parents speak German, the children will see, oh, actually, you know, there is German around me, and then they pick up the language easier and they communicate in the center in German as well. But so we always try to make a point, not to make a point, but like to show parents it's important to use those skills. So especially now with Corona, many families are in lockdown. What we try to do is like to send them like little hints. If you know, of course, sometimes you need maybe to use screen time, but do the screen time in German.
I think that's a benefit of having access to YouTube or any other kind of platform online, is that we can continue that immersive approach in an educational way as well. It's not just a passive viewing, because it can be then talked about. So if you know are using it to then speak about what were you watching and what were they talking about, you can encourage children in that way. So there are benefits to it.
It is such a great opportunity sometimes to build those relationships with families, but also relationships among children. So we all touch on technology and displays in the environment, but also I remember when I was working at Froebel, I don't speak German, but sometimes it was an opportunity for those children that like to help, for example, with something, to invite them to help maybe a new child that was speaking German only. So it was an opportunity to explain, oh, you know, but this child is new and she doesn't speak English. Do you think you could help me explaining a few things to her? And some children, where they are really keen and they want to do that, it's also an opportunity to build those relationships, and they help each other, and they understand that, you know, they might need to help the other child if they need to and if they really want to do it. And I think that's really valuable as well.
Our center is like 3 levels, so nursery, toddler, and preschool, that we introduce from in each level like a hand puppet who only speaks German to implement the language daily. So we use that beautiful puppet here. You know, we doesn't have a name yet because we're still on the voting, but tonight it will have a name. So, and all this puppet will only speak German. So we introduce it to the children, and the puppet has a whole story. So that's either Fritzi or Conny from Berlin. You can use that as a tool and say like, oh, but I don't understand you. Like, you know, like, Hanna, ich verstehe dich nicht. And then, you know, you can translate it for the children, but this puppet will only speak German.
Children learn in that way. They learn by having physical engagement with something, so through our senses. And I think with language development, that's as well, we kind of can use something to learn the name of an object or the name of a person. You know, we'll point to ourselves if we're the mother or, you know, dad or dog or duck, and children develop that language because we talked about being able to physically see it and touch it and engage with it. And I think that immersive approach is happening with the language within the rooms, not only in terms of language and literacy, but it's within the entire curriculum, right? You're looking at inquiry-based learning and developing a knowledge through inquiry of language or inquiry of science projects or inquiry of social and emotional development. And I think that it's not separate, they're all interconnected. And like I said, sometimes those elements of learning are not physically seen necessarily in the story park documentation or when you're coming in for pickup or drop off, because it's happening in every moment of the day.
For example, all the experiences, explorations, they also done in German and in English. Let's say it's science projects, if it's like somebody's doing in English, and then like German educators might join and support the German aspect, or if it's Hannah exploring, I don't know, water quality, something with the children, she's speaking German, like switching to English where necessary. And we also do like, we have excursions to the parks and like local reserve and everywhere where we go. We also use German. We try to have also German. It's not always possible, but when we can, we do it so that we can explore different contexts for German language. So sometimes we can't do it in the center. Like we don't, for example, in St. Leonard's, we don't have like factual land because we're like on the 4-story building, and like, if we go outside we see more of like insects, living creatures, and it's another level of exploration where we can use German.
And also on my side, at least in the toddlers, I'm using a lot of music inputs, and I'm playing a lot of guitar daily with the children, with mostly German songs, like for example with Kokosnuss. And the children have so much fun because we include as well movement. So we can clap their hands or stamp their feet or whatever. Like obviously we are very blessed with the skill of the guitar, you know, that she can play the guitar, because once she has the guitar in her hand, the kids are like super listening, focused on it. And I feel that helps a lot with understanding the songs better and getting it like adapted to the song. So for example, the mom was sending a video like how the kid was doing the air guitar and singing the Kokosnuss song, and then the mom was like, can someone help me what that song means? And it was all, and that child was not even 100% confident in the English language.
Invited our families, like extended families in Germany and all German-speaking countries, even like in Australia where they live, to send us like some like small recordings, or maybe like they singing, grandparents, for example, or uncles, aunties singing a song or reading a book, so that we can play it for the children here in Sydney. And we already had one beautiful response from one family, and they recorded a few video clips where they dance with the child and they sing songs, and the child was excited, super excited about it. And our children would say, oh, I also know this song, it's so exciting.
I am going to mention two things that happened both at Parkville and at Fitzroy. Now, whether or not it's happened recently because of COVID, I'm not sure, but we can confirm that. I know that I think the end of last year at Parkville with the high school, the German speaking or students that attend the German classes in the high school came in, or either came to the centre, or some of the children went to the high school to listen to a play.
Yeah, they put on a play for us. It was COVID, but we were still able to go. They put it on at the Oval next door, and it was a very funny, very sweet little connection that we sort of formed with the community, the high school next door. So yeah, that was a good example.
I organized a cultural thing, because I'm from the south region from Germany, so we had Fastnet Carnival happening there every year. So this year I organized basically a carnival party in the kindergarten with all the levels, with music and shared traditional speeches. We used to have there in this typical area. It just happens in the south of Germany, so it's pretty typical. And it happens in Germany in kindergartens and schools as well. So everybody got dressed up and we just did some dances and heard those traditional dialect speeches. So that was really nice, but it's just once a year, unfortunately, but it was really nice. We could do that again.
Francie, at Fitzroy, you're right next door to the Deutsche School.
Exactly, literally next door. And we did pre-COVID a lot that we had the children coming over and reading to us, and they loved it. They were proud how they can read, and the little children were like, wow, someone can read. And they were all speaking German, and they went from room to room. And we're planning on doing it actually again. Yeah, that was it. And we did the same with Fasching. We also celebrated Fasching and were listening to a lot of German songs and playing German games like Stuhltanz, Eierlauf, Sackhüpfen, and it was a big hit. Yeah.
All the rooms have been involved in some sort of, when we talk about music or technology or words and all that. But also particularly with Harmony Week. And then after that, the cultural element is so important. And Angelica created this map where families could get a star, put a star of where the countries where they were from. And sometimes you go to the rooms and they're playing, salsa music or something like that. So it goes beyond just, as you were saying, what we speak, and that's how we've been doing.
I think this was super valuable to hear how it works across all our different services, being one Froebel organisation, but in different locations and the connections that are being made. So I'd like to thank you all for your time.